and there is a battle with Dokhin Rai, when suddenly she remembers that, but in the previous edition, I had made friends with Narayani. Narayani is Dokhin Rai's mother, which makes Dokhin Rai my son. So she tells Dukhe and she tells Dokhin Rai, the two of you must coexist together, for you are brothers. Then she calls a crocodile. She tells Dukhe, you sit on top of this crocodile, go home to your mother. And Dukhe says, but crocodile will eat me. He says, no, the crocodile will not eat you, for the crocodile too is your brother. Bon Bibi emerges in that story as the mother of not just human beings, whether it's a Hindu or a Muslim or a Dalit or an upper caste, lower caste, rich, poor, man, woman. She appears as a mother not only to these, but also to the crocodile, to the tiger, to the ants, to the deer, the crabs, the fish, the water, the trees, the land, the wind. Every element that exists in the land of the 18 tides are all interconnected and are all siblings. The people of Sundarban believe this story. People of Sundarban live by this story, even though there are violations. They live by this story, and over, we've heard people say there, the forest is, therefore I am. In today's divided world, seems like a very, very inspiring story to hear. Pamun Gaji's story, similar. It's some people say the story is 400 years old, some people say 500 years old. In the Tajpur region, in the outer Sundarban area, there were once two healers, a peer and a Brahmin, who traveled around healing people, one with oil, one with water. They developed a great friendship, they developed a great following, and they also died very close to each other. When, after their death, their chief disciple combined his two gurus to give rise to the syncretic figure of Bamon Gaji. Even today, there are shrines of Bamon Gaji in this region which heal people. People of all castes, classes, religions go there with their ailments. They are healed sometimes with oil, sometimes with water, and sometimes with a combination of oil and water. These two stories have been of particular inspiration to us uh, because of the world we live in and the possibilities that these stories propose. The Kathalia dolls from a completely different district, Murshidabad. The Kathalia dolls always depict everyday forgotten moments from yours and our lives. Two women hugging each other, three women sitting in a row picking lice from each other's hair, a woman breastfeeding her child while the man combs her hair and massages her. A bit more progressive than in most of our homes, no? Um, in about 40, 50 years ago, there were about 70 families to make these dolls. Today, there is one 75-year-old man left who is making these dolls simply to uphold the tradition. In the 70s or 80s, Archaeological Survey of India East and Ashutosh College, they went 2 kilometers from their village for an excavation. All the villagers rushed there to see what's happening. And from those excavations emerged, apart from pottery shards and lots of things, also emerged dolls. That's when the artists realized that the dolls that they have been generationally making go back to the 7th century, because the excavation was at the site of Raja Shoshanko, who is one of Bengal's leading medieval era kings. Now, These dolls are very much rooted within their communities, within their context. Their stories are also rooted, they're cultural, they're also universal, they're global. We can find resonances ourselves. We can also find some global resonances with these dolls. Like what you can't tell from this photograph that yes, that these dolls made by the Karaha Indian tribes are also red, white, and black, also showing very similarly everyday quotidian forgotten moments from ordinary people's lives. The global connects that we have found, that we have discovered, are in the process of discovering as we move along in this mad hunt for doll story. This photograph was just taken last month of the Putuls that we found at the Altus Museum in Berlin. And these dolls are really quite timeless. These are Greek, but hand pressed clay dolls like this found all over the world, where they are worshipped and they are played with also. I cannot say for certain if they continue to be played with, they continue to be part of people's lives in other parts, in other civilizations, as they continue to be in West Bengal. But they certainly did at one time. The votives, the same cheating god concept. Fertility figures from around the world. Every civilization has had them. The Krishnanagar dolls from Nodia district are very interesting. They're also the most famous of all the doll arts of West Bengal. Have any of you seen the Krishnanagar dolls before? Many of you might own them also. They became famous because their village, Bhurni, is very strategically located. Most of the doll villages are still very much in the interiors. You have to travel some amount of distance through forests to access them. But Ghurni is 15 minutes from Krishnanagar, the capital. Krishnanagar was always the cultural center of Nodia. And when the British came, they heavily influenced the styles of doll making in Krishnanagar. You can see the very realistic depictions that exist in Western art, the attention to features, muscles, and over there are Greek dolls depicting very similar everyday moment, very realistic. What kind of dolls used to be made in Krishnanagar before the arrival of the British is not known anymore. So, what began as a curiosity, as a playful fascination, has sort of grown into a larger project. That was not the initial aim, but it has grown into a project with some ambitions, some aspirations, some visions. To once we started hearing these stories, it sort of became a little bit important to excavate why these stories are important to us, why are they so fascinating, and how can newer relevance and context be established for them because they exist. The connections only need to be made. Can it be done through art, which was the very natural thing for us to do since we are a bunch of artists? Can we try and find broader platforms like this one? Can we try and establish and solidify and go a little bit deeper into the global connect, into the worldwide connect, the possibilities that these dolls present, because the dolls really are a medium, to find connections. And all of this is only and only possible in collaboration, conversation with the artists and their community. So things that have emerged from this research, things that have emerged really as natural interconnections. None of this was part of any master plan, really. They've organically developed pop-up exhibitions that we travel with. They're very difficult to travel with because the clay dolls snap and break constantly. But we've managed to bring a small exhibition here to Bangalore. If you do have the chance, they're only on till Sunday. Do pop in and take a look. These are some of other interconnections that have organically developed: workshops, storytelling sessions, discussion group with children, adults, and educators, workshops and interactions with doll artists who come into spaces like these, meet people like you and me, not only transfer the art of doll making to people like us who may never have dug our hands into clay ever before, but they've also become a space for sharing stories. They've become a space for friendships, for cultural exchanges. And that has been as enriching as learning how to make clay dolls. A performance that came about in collaboration with a group of doll artists from Goshaba in Sundarban, with dolls that are handcrafted by these group of artists that tell stories of the Sundarban. I can actually show you a short trailer. This show, just to give you an idea of how this manifests. Excuse the low resolution of this particular video because we just downloaded it from our YouTube channel this morning. 400 islands across a watery world scattered. Ah, ha, 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 ha. Look, look, so many colorful people in our Sundarban. Forest is watching. The forest is always watching. Raju and Altaf, the very bestest of friends. Fishing challenges, races, jokes. Their banter never ends. Presenting Dukhe Jatra! The adventures of Dukhe. Hold on, Dukhe! There is a big wave coming!
পাঠাও দুঃখেরে আমার সনে মরদের জঙ্গলে দলে বলে কেটে পড় রেখে দুঃখেরে আমার কাছে।
Looks like there's a big storm coming.
জল জঙ্গল মাটি দিয়ে গড়ায় আমার ঘর রে দয়াল ভাসাইলি কোন ভাটির পর রে দয়াল ভাসাইলি কোন ভাটির পর মাটি কানায় রাখলো সনাতন সুন্দরবনে পাইলাম কোন নতুন দর্শন ভালোবেসে হাত বাড়িয়ে করো রে যতন যতন বিনে ভয়ঙ্করী হতে কতক্ষণ হতে কতক্ষণ
There's also been a couple of animation, one on the Kathalia dolls, the red, black, and white dolls that I was telling you about, and one on the Bakura horse. These are really experiments in the initial phases. I think I'm overshooting time a little. I do have the film, but you have to tell me whether you want to see it or would you prefer me to proceed? Want to see the animation? Yeah, it's much more interesting than listening to me talk. There's no sound. The VLC again.
Let me tell you the story of a little girl just like you. Once upon a time, in a land not so far from here, Amma, Baba, and little baby lived without fear. They loved each other so much and lived wonderfully and well. Until it begins our story to tell. Day after day, it felt like the end of the world. But all was not lost. Surely someone would help. They asked the sun, the moon, the trees, how do we fix our baby? Bring her out to the veranda. I can make her better. No, leave her out at night. No, crush my leaves and feed them to her. So many choices, Amma. The river flowed quietly along, patiently waiting her turn. So they crept up to her one night, beg for their child's joy to return. The river said, use the mud from my banks and build a horse just the same size as the baby and offer it to the gods. Once the gods are pleased with the sight, your baby will be just all right. And was she? They took the clay and got to making 4 strong legs. Why 4? Why not 6? A sturdy body and a plump tail, good for the taking. And then, before they could get back to the horse, she started crawling, then walking, then running. Yes! Eager to chase their pride and joy, Baba and Mama clean forgot about their 4-legged toy. One day, when she was playing along the house, she found him, the headless horse. Where did your head go? She asked him. I don't know. Ever since I've been around, there hasn't been a head to be found. Well, that just won't do.
Aunt for your head is clearly so overdue.
Where should we go look for this head? Asked the sun. The sun said, Look in the chulha, no? And the moon said, Maybe the fireflies stole it. Oh! And the tree said, Maybe someone buried it like so. None of those seemed to be true. The little horse's misery grew until the river would come to their rescue. The next day, strangely, in dropped silence. It felt like the end of the world. Desperate for help, back to the river they wept. Don't anger the gods, or she might never wake up. The horse has to be the same size as the baby, not an inch smaller, not a bit bigger. The horse is so small, Amma. How will they do it? They built his neck up, up, and up until it was just as big as the baby. Then, finally, when they woke up from their slumber, voila! The horse had got its head. So smart. Baby leapt out of bed, and no longer were they afraid of the god's thunder. Another one, Amma. Now, tell me another story. Go to sleep now, baby. Another one,
Learning called process. Very important learning that not just the doll, but their intangible stories have wider relevances beyond their immediate context, that, that the traditional is contemporary and the non traditional contemporary art. And important that I say it here at the National Gallery of Modern Art, that that contemporary is important too. When we were making Mati Katha, the performance, there were two big questions that just kept rising up. The first of the questions was, why is this folklore important to me? Because a folklore or any story talks about so many things. What aspect of this is resonating with me, with the world that I inhabit, the wider world, the big world that we live in? For example, like the Bone Bibi story. The second question was, what's in it for the artist and their community? And this is not an easy question to answer. It's also a question that refuses to go away. And while we were dealing with this question, Paulomi, who was our dramaturg and content guide, she did her PhD on the Bon Bibi Jatra Pala and lived in Sundarbans for almost a decade, has family and friends there. She told us something very important. She said, this question of what can I give back often arises from a place of well meaning superiority. Be humble, know your place, and remember that you can never give back as much as you have taken. So bow your head and admit, I have been changed by you. I have been changed by the experiences, the stories that you have so generously shared with me. And nothing that I ever do can ever match what I have received from you. There's only one thing that you can do. Don't take and leave. Keep coming back. Build relationships. Build lasting relationships. Don't take till you have built these relationships, and don't build relationships with the intention of taking. Simply enjoy the mutual enrichment that comes from these deep, meaningful, lasting friendships that are sustained from both sides. And if such a friendship happens from this space of equal collaboration, things may emerge or they may not, but you will still have a friendship. What's left to do? So far, we have only covered about 9 or 10 districts, and that too not comprehensively, because every time we go back to West Bengal, 10 new villages seem to have discovered. There are 23 villages, so this is not going to get done in my lifetime at least. But to keep going back to do field work, meeting the doll artists, collecting their stories, possibly with an artist lab where the doll artists, the stories, and their dolls can find an equal space. And this is not easy, it's still in the thinking process, with multidisciplinary artists from different walks of life: theater, animation, music, writing, film, dance, and see the possibilities that emerge. This is still in the thinking stage. There was another um, collaborations with museums and art spaces like these, so that the doll stories, the dolls can become part of cultural thinking. They can find wider and deeper platforms. Another plan that we had when we started was to create an archive, and this is in the stage of being dropped. And I mention this particularly because we realized when we just went to Birbhum and Purulia this time, we found two beautiful stories of Bhadu and Tushu that have never been written down. Because they have never been written down, unlike Bone Bibi's story, their many versions are divergent, sometimes contradictory, and extremely varied. The minute you write something down, the written work emerges as the dominant narrative, even though other versions might exist. Unlike Bon Bibi, with Bhadu and Tushu, today anything happens. Bhadu in last rendition we heard had also gone to the moon. So anything happens. By creating an archive, do we have the right to create a dominant narrative, not a space that we feel we can encroach on? But art is fluid and it's confluent. So the core of the matter is that tradition survives and remains contemporary and gives birth to new streams through change, through collaborations, when these are performed in so many different ways through theater, storytelling, workshops, multimedia, etc. And it is in this space, in the collaborative space through art, where we felt we could join hands with the artists so that through collaborations and translations into different art forms, the dolls can gain a life, a reach that can bring a lot of joy and a lot of evaluation to a large number of people like you and me. Thank you. And we can now open the space up for any questions or thoughts or anything that might be on your mind.
Yeah, we have 10 minutes for question answer.
Can we have a little bit of audience light, please? 'Cause I can't see anybody. So if anybody has a question and raises their hand, thank. One happened last weekend here in Bangalore. Um, we had one in Bombay, we had one in Delhi. We try and make them happen anywhere where there are funds to bring the artists down.
I'm a child psychologist, clinical psychologist. I practice treating children with problems. And many of the children are unable to say what are their problems. So we use what is called play therapy. Out of one format is family doll. So we use three generation of doll and some ordinary day-to-day life thing and sit with the child and ask them just to. So over say 8 to 10 sessions, the whole issue of what was bothering the child becomes clear to us without the child telling what's happening at home. Just the daddy and mommy kind of fight, things like. So it's very, very contemporary and can be here and now.
Absolutely.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you for sharing that. It's absolutely true. And they're also so fascinating because when they're used in therapeutic purposes as well, um, they don't hot seat the child or the adult. It's an external way of expression that makes it so much safer. Thank you for sharing that. The schools in West Bengal, not so far yet, but hopefully. Ironically, West Bengal has been a difficult place for us to take project to. We've sort of been planning it. It's been planned and cancelled for 3 years now. We're trying. We're trying hard, and of course, we will make it happen.
Hi, thank you so much for the wonderful presentation. It was lovely to see the stories of the dolls and very beautiful to see the light, the way you used it to, show the forest watching. I was wondering if you uh, have an opinion of the way the dolls were created then. You also showed the Midnapur dolls. I don't know if the name is right. After the British influence, they became a little,
Vishnunnagar.
sorry?
Vishnunnagar.
Vishnunnagar. Yeah, yeah. So there it is a little more realistic. So I'm wondering, even when you look at art, when you go to tribal art forms, there is a certain disconnect to the human forms or the animal, the way we see it, to what is represented. Similarly, in the dolls, it looked like that. So I was wondering if you have an opinion of why it used to be like that or it continues to be like that.
I feel that Mr. Patro here would be a better person to answer this question. My very fickle understanding, I'm not an art student. I am no specialist in art. I will say that right in the beginning as a disclaimer. My understanding is that realism is a new introduction in our art. Our traditional art, our folk art tends to be symbolic, totemic, and representational, not depicting things exactly as they are, but more bhavpurna. That is my understanding. Mr. Patro, correct me if I'm wrong.
Yeah, what I felt.
it's actually right. Because in case of your doll study, what you did from the different part of Bengal, it is all about the actual thing, what you observed there, you went there, you felt, yeah, what you have observed there, you just collected the thing and presented it. So I think it's right. What you said, it's absolutely.
If you look at our, if I look at our traditional art, realism is not the endeavor. It's not the engagement. Uh, but if you look at Greek and Roman art, if you look at the bodies, if you look at how Aphrodite is created, and if you look at how Ganga is created, very different. Back to what? You know, uh, theater artists, visual artists, Indian theater artists, visual artists, and actually I can speak more for theater and performing arts. We seem to go through a cycle where a lot of us will go to RADA, Lambda, the West to study theater, Western form of theater. We'll go through that course and come back and then spend 10 years unlearning what we learned in the West and to go back to our Navarasa theories, go back to our Natya Shastra, go back to the because when you are talking about realism, then you're also realistic in time and space. Indian Indian art and theater is not realism. Time and space is very fluid. So to relearn the Indian idioms of doing theater, of creating art, just actually, very interestingly, right now at the basement of MAP, they have a 3D of the Museum of Art and Photography. There's a very interesting exhibition happening, a 3D animation of Jamini Roy's unseen work, early unseen works, completely Western. You can't imagine that they were Jamini Roy's works. And when I was watching that exhibition, they looked a little bit like Monet. When I was watching that exhibition, I was remembering that we had gone to Bankura and we had met a doll family who we bought dolls from. They make wooden dolls, very much like um, there. You see the red dressed wooden doll. The owl is from Sundarban. They're from outer Sundarban. It's quite contemporary. But the red one, the red wooden doll is quite traditional. And the family is the same village as Jamini Roy. And the family is saying how Jamini used to come and sit in their house for months and months and months watching them make and carve dolls. And how they believe that he was inspired by the uh, iconography that he saw in these dolls. So for us, we have a rich playground locally and globally. Uh, I mean,
I just wanted to know that whether you teach doll also.
sorry.
Do you teach dolls how to make dolls?
Oh, if I taught, then you would. We do bring the artists down to who are
Okay.
really the experts. If I taught them, they wouldn't look nothing like any dolls.
Because you are so much experienced and you are having dolls from generations, what you told. So I thought maybe you know how to make it too.
Well, I've done some of the workshops that they do, but I have to say that this is not my core talent.
We could we call it a day?
More questions?
On behalf of National Gallery of Modern Art Bengaluru and Ministry of Culture, I thank Ms. Ghosh for the deeply enriching and thought-provoking presentation. Your work inspires us to see tradition not as something fixed, but as something alive, breathing, evolving, and speaking to the present moment. And I think we could call it as a contemporary. So, I mean, India has world has this folk. Folk is something which is a very tangible in terms of when you look at the oral history. So you have listened to your grandparents and telling stories. So these are all something which is part of the culture, and it is very dynamic and it is very contextual to the contemporary time. So I think that's what makes us very relatable. And today with the, we have such visual enriching elements, what we consume every day from our cell phones to the outside world. So, we all get excited about what is exactly art. And I think this is a very good opportunity to look back and see how you relate to certain objects which gradually becomes your part of life, and you build story along with it. And at one point of time it becomes a memory where you look at the doll and say how you are associated, how you built a story, or somebody told a story about the doll. So thank you again. I request my colleague Mr. Patro to kindly felicitate for being here today with us and giving this talk.